couple of things I need you to get out of your packet. A spreadsheet that contains the budget numbers or proposed budget numbers, and another page that's a pledge form. So if you would get both of those out, I can kind of walk you through them and talk about them. I might wait just a second now that there's a steady stream of folks coming in. So, while they're coming in, I can say some general things. The philosophy of the diocese concerning finances is that the purpose of the diocese is to serve the churches and missions, who are the entities that really do the work of what Jesus would have us do. And so our job is to support all of you, not the other way around. So we build a budget that's pretty lean. We first look at what things do we need to do and what people do we need to have and what do they cost. And then that's the budget. It's not some artificial fraction or a tithe or anything like that. And then after we figure out how much we need to operate in the coming year, we then look at the operating income of all the churches and missions, and we say, what percent of all of their income is that budget we prepared? And then we ask you to donate to the diocese that percentage. Last year, that was 4.1% of each church and missions operating income. I'm happy to say it will be the same 4.1% this year as well. It's not going up. But it's not a tithe like 10% or anything, which some of us had to pay in other organizations earlier. So we don't operate like that. So with that in mind, rather than starting discussing the budget at the top line, which is the income line, I'd rather skip down to the various expenditures that we have to make in 2017 on this spreadsheet. You'll notice on the spreadsheet that it does give you information for the last 2 years' budgets as well, and how much of this year, 2016 budget, that we have spent so far through September. We've spent a little more than that since we're almost through November now, but that gives you some sense of it. The last column, though, is what's proposed for 2017. If you start with looking at church planning assistance, about a third of the way down that first page, you'll see that the budget for the Great Commission Committee is $146,095, which is exactly what it was last year as well. However, it's actually more generous in 2017 because we have included the compensation for our new executive assistant to the canon, Reverend Tim Howe, who's been running around here a lot this morning, is in the payroll part of the budget. It's not in the Great Commission Committee budget. So this same amount of money is actually provides more resources for the work of the Great Commission, and because it doesn't account for the cost of the gifts and talents of Reverend Howe. Our travel budget, we expect to be the same as it was last year, $58,000 for the bishop and the canon and some staff travel. Our various programs, which aren't sizable for the most part, will be pretty much the same. You will notice, though, at the last one, the clergy and spouses retreat, there will be no such retreat in 2017. We have that retreat every other year, but we accrue half the expenses for it in each year so that it doesn't all get charged to the budget in a single year. So in 2017, we will accrue $19,200 toward what we expect in 2018 to spend on the next retreat. The next item is the biggest item, the payroll, where we cover the cash compensation, housing allowances, pension, health care, and other benefits of the staff, of our employees, and that has gone up 1%. I'm sorry, it's gone up more than that, but it's altogether, the increase is accounted for by a 1% increase in the compensation of all employees, plus the added compensation to add the executive assistant to the canon in 2017, which was not included in the 2016 budget. We compensated the executive assistant as well as our new event coordinator this year out of cash reserves, because we didn't have those positions at the beginning of 2016, so we couldn't have budgeted for them last year. But we will be budgeting for them in 2017, and they're included in the payroll numbers. The outside contractors, the chancellor, last year we cut that budget in half from $10,000 to $5,000 from the previous year, and he still didn't charge us anything. So we're leaving it the same. We figure that he probably won't charge us in 2017 either, but he might. Who knows? We might get in some legal difficulty. Pray that we don't, but we'll have that amount budgeted. The audit money always gets spent because we have, every year we have a CPA firm do an audit of our books and records, and so therefore that will get spent. It wasn't all spent by the end of September, but they weren't quite through. We have since spent most of that budget because the audit for 2015 is behind us now. Then most of the administrative expenses, some for 2017 are a little more than they were in 16, some a little less, but mostly the same. And so there's nothing changing there. The biggest administrative expense is the $1,500 a month that we pay for our offices in the wing next door on the second floor. And that $1,500 a month is a bargain for what we're getting, and so we're very appreciative to All Saints for that. All right, so then we can add up our total expenses, sort of. Now we go back to the top line, and you see there's two lines above the Great Commission Committee. One is the ACNA contribution of $24,000 for the year that Bishop John spoke about earlier today. That's determined iteratively because it is a tithe by us to the province, but it's 10% of our income, but we don't know what our income is exactly yet, so it's that $91,000 is determined iteratively. $91,000, not the 24. Oh, yes, not the 24, the $91,000 in total. So then what we're asking for then from the churches and missions is the operating income number of $892,986. Which is about 3% more, than last year, and that's because of that 1% increase in all staff income or compensation, and the added increase for Reverend Howe's compensation that wasn't there. There's no real addition for Lisa Anderson, the new event coordinator, because Heather Adams, who was both the event coordinator and registrar until now, will only be the registrar next year, so her hours and compensation are going down while we add Lisa's. So that's sort of a wash between the 2 years, so there's no real increase from Lisa adding. But there is for Reverend Howe, because that's a new position altogether. So anyway, the total budget then is $916,986, and that, I suppose, will be what the bishop will ask you to approve here in a moment. But before that, are there any questions or comments that anybody wants to make about the proposed budget? Yes, sir. Well, for this year, it's going to be pretty close to right on budget. It might be a little bit under. We might have a small surplus left over, but we're not sure of that. We know more than through September now, and we're very close. Most of the underage, if you notice, for everything, we've only spent 70% of the budget through September. On a straight line basis, it should be 75%, so we're kind of under as of the end of September. But that's because of that Great Commission Committee. It's hard to get them to spend all their money until the end of the year. And the reason for that is they get requests and opportunities all during the year, and then they have to evaluate each one and then make decisions on which ones to fund and how much to fund them. And so that tends to be backloaded, the actual expenditure of the money, because all that evaluation and paperwork that has to happen first and committee work takes longer. But I had a heart-to-heart chat with Canon Tom last week about that, and he assured me that as of now, they have more opportunities and requests than our budget is. So they're not going to be able to fund all of them. So they will fund 100% of their budget, or spend 100% of their 2016 budget, which means we probably overall will not have a surplus. It'll be probably right on budget. And they'll have a head start on next year's budget since they can't fund everything this year that they would like to. All right. Anything else?
Ready to vote? Is there a motion the budget be accepted as presented? Second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Done, and with thanks, Gary.
Okay, if I may take just a little personal moment. Is Jim Beavers in here? There he is, okay. Jim, those of us in the body of Christ at Church of the Apostles could certainly empathize with your congregation on the loss of your beloved Lorraine. Because a couple of days ago, our beloved Alice Buck went to be with Jesus. Alice Buck and her husband Pete were part of the founders of Church of the Apostles. In 1968, they and a bunch of others left Truro and planted Church of the Apostles. So for 48 years, we enjoyed her leadership, her love, her wonderful personality, her prayers, and I can't imagine all the gifts that she's given to the church over those 48 years. A lot of you know her since she's been part of the Anglican family, or formerly Episcopal family, in Northern Virginia. And so I wanted to let you know that has happened. And on December 10th at Truro Anglican, at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's a Saturday, there will be a memorial service for Alice if any of you would like to come. Thanks.